We had more questions from David Brody, which I really like. David Brody asks me seemingly simple questions that really make me work. And I like to work because I love to think. I really love to think. Don't really care to eat. I would happily give up elimination. Sleep is an annoyance to me. I really love fornication. But of the life processes, I think my favorite is ratiocination, human life processes. I like to think. I like to think all the way through something. I laugh at myself all the time because I tend not to think about things until I do. But when I do, I like to think them all the way through. I like to think about them with an empathy for the machine, to understand how all of the intricate components interact with each other and create the synergistic effect that we observe. So, on the subject of working at your marriage, how to do it, why bother, we talked about it, I guess, 3 weeks ago. David asks, when do I give up? And how do I know if I should? I'm paraphrasing him. You can go back to that video if you want to see his questions, but I'm paraphrasing his questions. When do I give up, and how do I know if I should? And that, I don't know, maybe that should be a simple question to answer. It wasn't that simple for me because I really kind of had to work through it first. When do I give up? This is a context I really know nothing about because the context actually is dating. I know nothing about dating. I've never been on a date in my life. I'm married to a remarkably beautiful, wonderfully cultured, impossibly compassionate, thrillingly considerate, amazingly sexual, fun, funny, sweet, smart, personable woman. She's never been on a date. I know nothing about dating except that it strikes me as being a strategy aimed at intentional failure. If the goal is marriage, if the goal is marriage the way I describe it, the romantic storgic union of souls, the conversation you never want to end, the relationship in which each partner is steadfastly committed to making each other better, to making the us of them better, to just doing better. The person who is most committed to you just the way you are is your mom. Your dad has hurdles that he intends for you to leap, but your mother would have been happy to suckle you and change your diapers forever. That's not really true, thank God. But there is a truth to it in the sense that the one person in the world who will always take you back is your mammy. But the person who is most likely to drive you toward moral perfection, toward splendor, toward doing better at everything that's important to you in your life, the person who's most likely to do that is your spouse, provided that your marriage is working. But if you are dating, my expectation is that you're not aiming toward that kind of relationship. You may say that you are, but in fact, you're simply shopping. And you could argue that you can't buy without shopping, but you cannot have bought while having shopped forever. If there's no one at home you're hurrying to, it's just a graveyard you're hurrying through. So, I guess my initial reaction to this, not necessarily to David, but to anyone who is approaching marriage from that point of view, when do I give up and how do I know if I should? My first response would be stop dating. Stop dating. Stop doing anything at all like dating. Stop shopping for a mate. Just stop shopping for a mate. You are living all of your values all the time. You're pursuing all of your values all of the time. And I talked about this with David on the order of a year and a half ago in another video. Your ideal mate will be attracted to you when you are her ideal mate. And so perusing the catalog for ideal mates without demonstrating the virtues that will be equally and mutually attractive is kind of futile. And in fact, that catalog that you're pursuing is not composed of your ideal mate. It's just composed of your ideal date. And what is your ideal date? It's anywhere from 6 minutes to 6 hours to 6 days to 6 weeks, but not 6 months, definitely not 6 years, and certainly not 60 years. And so by dating, you are actively shopping and selecting among people whom you almost certainly would never marry. At least not now. They may change later on. You will have changed later on, and you may each be more marriageable by then, but neither of you is marriageable now, and we can see that that's true by the fact that you're dating. Rather than living the rest of your values, the values that you can pursue now in the absence of a mate. Well, how do you find a mate if you don't date? Well, my answer is just live, and the person who's looking for you will find you, or the person you're looking for you'll find. And that's certainly the case with my wife, with every romantic relationship I've had in my life, but especially with Kathleen. And we're perfect for each other. And we are beneficiaries of a sort of mutual serendipity. We found without having sought, and what we found was perfect because we weren't constantly rejecting everyone, rejecting the eminently rejectable without ever finding anyone who is embraceable. I found embraceable her by being embraceable me. I'm a saguaro cactus. I'm the prickliest son of a bitch you'll ever meet. Incredibly well defended, and yet she found a way to bring out my inner romantic, and good and bad, peaks and valleys, like in all marriages, but the last 6 or 7 years, I think, a long time, steadily, increasingly better, and better every day. And I think that the fact that our relationship began outside the context of dating, of avidly pursuing people whom you don't intend to marry, being outside of that world is what makes our marriage so good. By having started just with life and making life work, amazingly enough, our lives work. So, as I say, I don't know that this applies to David, and I'm not implying any criticism whatever. Everyone alive right now is suffering from awful advice about love, sex, marriage, and family. And the people, I guess, who suffer worst are the ones who should be doing the best. People who are contemplative, who are very serious about ideas, who are serious about morality, or serious about doing the right thing. These people should be doing amazingly better in the romantic marketplace, and they're not. And the reason that they're not is because they have all of this terrible advice about shopping around and no strings attached and casual encounters and all of the euphemisms that we have for licensing indiscriminate sexuality outside the context of a serious, committed, permanent marriage. This is a terrible idea. It's a very bad idea. So that's the first place that I get, is that if there's any consideration of giving up on a relationship, the chances are that there really isn't a relationship. There hasn't been a relationship so far. There could be, but there really isn't one yet, because you both are just dating. I mean, you literally can be dating for 6 months, and people have dated for 6 years. Oh, I'm dating this one, I'm dating that one, and they're committed. They're committed couples. They're not sleeping around on each other. They're not shopping on each other. They're literally married by my estimation, in the sense that neither one is shopping. But at the same time, if they're not openly and overtly mutually committed to each other and to their marriage, then they're loosely married. They're Mr. Maybe married, Mrs. Maybe married. And that's a relationship that's going to oscillate out of control anyway. It's going to spin apart anyway. If you really are in a situation that cannot work, that you approached it as a marriage, as a relationship that was headed toward marriage, you approached it that way, and your partner did at first also, and then deal killers emerged further down the road. And I can't imagine what they would be, except possibly extreme verbal abuse or any sort of physical abuse or infidelity or other newly emergent or previously undisclosed deal killer vices. Um, if the future portent of that relationship is zero, if you cannot possibly make it work, that would be when you give up. On the other hand, if it simply isn't working right now, in other words, it was really good at first, it's always really good at first, it's always really good at first, but it was really good at first, it was good for both of you, and you both had the same objective, you were both headed toward a long-term romance, is what we call it, in order to avoid calling it a marriage, but you were both headed toward marriage, and then things went south for whatever reason. He got Mr. Maybe's blues and started distancing himself, being distant, being silent, being alienating in his choices, that every choice that he makes with respect to her serves to further alienate her, to push her further away, such that it's harder for them to pull each other together even when they want to. Or conversely, she's let herself go, put on a lot of weight, changed her appearance in radical ways, especially things like teenage boy haircuts, asexualizing apparel choices. Or she's decided that he is her property, hers to order around, and it's his to suffer in silence, or she will make his life a living hell. These things can have happened. They can happen. It was working before, it's not working now. My advice is to fix it. If you really belong together, if it really is a relationship that both of you want to make work, and for whatever reason it's not working now, you need to find that elephant in the room, figure out what it is, and work it out. And this is doable. I'm living proof. I don't deserve to have the marriage I have, and yet I have it anyway. Thank goodness I have a woman as sweet and kind as forgiving as the one I'm married to, because I am a cactus, I am a prick, I'm a swallow. And yet, by doing things this way, taking on that elephant in the room and figuring out what to do about it, we've been able to fix the things that could otherwise have destroyed our marriage, to the point now that there's no threat to it whatever. I'll be married for life. I don't know, I never could have said that before very recently, within the last 6 or 7 or 8 years. I never could have said that. But now I can say it with full confidence. I'll be married for the rest of my life. I'll be married to Kathleen for the rest of my life. She'll be married to me for the rest of her life. And our relationship is irreplaceable. It is completely non-fungible. It's completely irreplaceable. And that's why the question, when should I give up, is a really dangerous one. The whole idea of marital failure is a terrible idea. A terrible idea. Not to say that it can't happen, won't happen, will never happen. And we can engineer a situation where marriages will never break. This will never happen. Will not happen. Marriages can break. They can, but they shouldn't. The relationship is not a romance. It is storgic love. It's a family. And families should not break. Families are anti-fragile, to use the slang of the microsecond, but families are built to endure. That's what storgic love means, the enduring love of families. And what enduring means is the love that lasts even through the kind of crises that would destroy a lesser love, that would destroy a romantic love, for instance, or a mere affinity like a friendship. Storgic love endures through that. It may not endure happily, it may not endure peacefully, it may endure in a stony silence for a few days. But storgic love endures because the two of you want to be an us more than you want the evanescent satisfaction of having your vengeance, your petty vengeance on this person for having been insufficiently obeisant to your expectations, I guess. But that if you both actually decide that you are both actually married to each other forever, the idea of giving up should never come up. And so now, obviously, I'm not talking about dating relationships. I'm not talking about anything that's temporary. I'm talking about something where you have really gone out of your way to express your commitment, and so has the other partner. And ideally, obviously, explicitly in words, and the best possible way would be explicitly in words in undeniable writing. Set it down in writing, what you really actually mean, and what you intend to be held accountable to. The reason that we invent all of these fudge words, the reason that we invent all of these euphemisms, the reason that we invent all of these idiotic rationalizations is in order to avoid specifying everything that we know to be true about the nature of our commitments. If we are vague in our expressions of commitment, we can be incredibly detailed and abjuring that commitment and attempting to escape from that commitment and insisting that, oh no, I never promised anything at all like that. What a bad marriage, a bad long-term relationship ultimately is a cacophonous, silent argument between the two parties in which each one is insisting without words that I never promised what you said I promised. If you want your marriage to endure, make your promises explicit, make them undeniable, and then hew to them. The movie The Wedding Singer is going to be, I guess it is on Netflix now. It was recently added. Kathleen and I saw that when we first got together, so this on the order of 17 and a half years ago. We went to a matinee on a weekday at a theater downtown in Phoenix, and there was nobody there. It was, a week or two after it had opened, and there was no one in the cinema but us. And we ended up making out for the whole movie. We just made out in the theater for the whole movie. You're newly in love, and your head is swimming in all kinds of wonderful, intoxicating brain chemicals that go along with love. This is the equivalent, the human equivalent of estrus in animals. This is heat. We go through this the same as other mammals do. We have better ways of describing and rationalizing it, but it's a biological process. This is your snake brain is in a mating frenzy, and your mammal brain is in a love frenzy, and both of them are in a reproductive frenzy. And that frenzy is what fuels dating. This is what makes dating work, is that frenzy that I'm going to stay with this one until the feeling starts to fade, and then I'm going to go get another fix with the next one. This is how the incandescents took over love, sex, marriage, and family is exactly this way. This is exactly the same strategy that incandescents pursue with respect to mere attention, that I show up at your group and do something outrageous in order to get your attention, and as soon as the applause starts to fade, I'm off to another table doing the same dumb stunt there, trying to get another fix of attention. Well, this is the same thing that's going on with dating. You're trying to get another fix of that love nectar that you swim in for the first 6 months or so that you're together. And when that fades, you've got to figure out how to keep that love alive. Or else, move on to the next idiot until the music stops. There are no other idiots to land on, and you are all alone in a hospice room, dying, with 57 minutes of every hour being spent entirely alone. There are better choices to be made. But in any case, I mentioned to Kathleen that The Wedding Singer was coming on Netflix, and she said, "Oh, that's great. At last we'll be able to see it." This joke is old enough to drive. I mean, the event that I'm describing is old enough to drive. Very soon it will be old enough to vote. There is nothing that I could have from anyone else on earth that can compare with everything that I've had with Kathleen. Going all the way back to The Wedding Singer at the AMC theaters in downtown Phoenix 17 and a half years ago. There's nothing that can replace that. And because of that, I can't ever give up on my marriage. I should never give up on my marriage. There is no way for Kathleen to break this. Certainly she could, but she would do any of those things. There is any number of ways that I could break it, and I have to watch myself all the time to make sure I don't. There's no risk of infidelity. I would never consider cheating on my wife. There are too many good reasons for not doing that, but my fidelity to her is only the second best reason. My best reason is my fidelity to myself. I would hate to soil myself in that way. I would hate to soil my marriage. I would hate to soil her in that way. But it's egoistic first. To see myself betraying something that's so important to me would be unbelievably abhorrent to me. I don't know how I could survive something like that. Nothing I have to fear because I'll never do it. But no, the way that I can destroy my marriage is by being a prick, by being such an excellent cactus. I do it all the time with other people. And I am very, very careful to make sure that I don't do it with Kathleen. And even then, I'm out of bounds 2 or 3 times a week. Not that she says so, but that I recognize. I see myself, I catch myself over the line and try to fix it. And I hope I'm getting better at this over time. I've been working on this since I was 19 years old. No kidding. Working on exactly this since I was 19 years old. And I work on it very hard because I love my wife so much. And I would hate to see anything soil or sully that relationship, but obviously I couldn't endure having it destroyed. Last week we talked about the egoistic vanity as a story idea, and I was specifically talking about young adult fiction, but it doesn't matter. I mentioned the movie Chef, which is an egoistic vanity about adults, and I think it's a really good one. I think it's an excellent movie, but I also think it's excellent as moral philosophy. It's right up my street as moral philosophy. It's all about doing better. And during the week, I wrote a little note to Brian Brady that helps to illuminate what I'm talking about. So the line that I wrote is that the MacGuffin in a romantic comedy is Storgic love. MacGuffin is a term of art in cinema. It means the thing that everybody's chasing, the thing that everybody's trying to get. And in a romantic comedy, the thing that everybody's trying to get is that successful coupling. But the MacGuffin in a rom-com is not sex, it's not romance, it's not simply becoming a couple. The MacGuffin in a rom-com is to form a brand new family, to create a romantic storgic love between the two people in the couple such that they can commit to marriage and to family and to being together, having each other's back, loving each other incessantly for the rest of their lives. That is the MacGuffin in a rom-com. And it was interesting to me because I've been playing with it in this young adult context. I can see a way to take 9-year-olds and have them go through all of the classic tropes of a rom-com with the exception of sexual expression and end up married to each other at the age of 9. Not married in a romantic or sexual way, but married in a storgic way. Married as a family, family to each other, looking out for each other, having each other's back, loving each other incessantly and relentlessly as family. I think it's a fun idea. I think it's a really fun idea. This is my kind of fun in art. I really love stuff like that, where you mash together the impossible and make the reader eat it and like it. I really like that. But that way of understanding romantic comedy in cinema is your way of understanding your actual romantic relationships in real life. Your goal is not sex, it's not romance, it's not to be a couple. Your goal is to create a brand new storgic romance that results in a brand new family that lasts forever. And when should you give up on that? When you give up the ghost, and not before. My name is Greg Swan. This is the Church of Splendor. I'm so glad to have you with me. I'll talk to you again next week.